The Great Exile. The crystal chambers of the Tribunal of Worlds stretched endlessly above Ambassador Elena Vasquez, their surfaces reflecting light from a dozen different suns. She stood alone in the center of the vast amphitheater, surrounded by representatives from over 200 alien civilizations. The weight of their collective gaze pressed down on her like a physical force. Each species displayed their own unique form of disapproval. The Catherian delegates flashed angry red patterns across their scaled skin. The floating ethereal council members pulsed with dark purple energy. Even the normally peaceful Verdani had their leaves rustling with agitation. Elena kept her chin raised and her hands steady despite the trembling that threatened to overwhelm her. She had served as Earth's primary ambassador for 12 years, working tirelessly to maintain humanity's place in this galactic community. Now it seemed all those efforts were about to crumble around her. The massive crystalline structure above her head began to resonate with a deep harmonic tone, signaling that the Council Arbiter was about to speak. The Arbiter materialized from pure energy, taking the form of a towering humanoid figure composed of shifting light and shadow. When it spoke, its voice echoed from every surface in the chamber, creating an overwhelming chorus of judgment. The human species stands accused of violations that threaten the stability of our galactic order. You have demonstrated dangerous curiosity about forbidden technologies. Your researchers have attempted to access sealed knowledge archives. Your explorers have ventured into restricted space sectors without authorization. Elena felt her heart sink as she heard the formal charges. Each accusation was technically true, but they painted human scientific inquiry and exploration instincts as criminal acts. She had known this day might come ever since. Dr. James Liu's research team had accidentally triggered ancient defense systems while studying pre-civilization ruins in the Omega sector. That single incident had apparently convinced the Council that humans posed an existential threat to galactic peace. Furthermore, the Arbiter continued, its form growing brighter and more intimidating. Your species demonstrates an alarming tendency toward unpredictable innovation. You develop new technologies without proper oversight. You form alliances without Council approval. You ask questions that should not be asked and seek answers that should remain hidden. This behavior cannot be tolerated in a civilized galaxy. The accusation stung because Elena recognized the fundamental misunderstanding they represented. What the Council saw as dangerous unpredictability was simply human nature. Humans explored because they were curious. They innovated because they refused to accept limitations. They asked difficult questions because they believed truth was more important than comfort. These traits had lifted humanity from a single planet to membership in the greatest alliance in galactic history. Now those same traits were being used to justify their destruction. Elena activated her personal translator and prepared to make what might be humanity's final statement to the galactic community. Honored Council members, I stand before you not just as Earth's representative, but as a voice for every human who has ever looked up at the stars and wondered what lay beyond. Yes, we are curious. Yes, we innovate. Yes, we ask difficult questions. These are not flaws to be corrected, but gifts to be cherished. Our curiosity has led to medical breakthroughs that have saved billions of lives across dozens of worlds. Our innovations have improved life for every species in this alliance. Our questions have revealed truths that benefit us all. The Arbiter's form flickered with what might have been annoyance. Your words demonstrate the exact problem we seek to address. You speak of gifts and benefits, but you ignore the dangers. Your medical research has created new biological weapons. Your technological innovations have disrupted established economic systems. Your questions have awakened ancient threats that we had safely contained. The risk you represent far outweighs any potential benefits. Elena opened her mouth to respond, but the Arbiter raised a hand of pure energy, silencing her. The tribunal has reached its unanimous decision. The human species is hereby expelled from the Galactic Council. All human colonies must withdraw from Council-protected space within 60 standard days. All trade agreements are terminated immediately. All diplomatic relations are severed. Any human found in Council space after the deadline will be detained as a hostile entity. The chamber erupted in a cacophony of alien sounds as representatives from various species expressed their approval or concern. Elena stood frozen in disbelief as the reality of the situation crashed over her. 3 centuries of human progress among the stars had just been wiped away with a single pronouncement. 12 million humans scattered across 47 worlds were suddenly homeless. 20-3 light years away on Earth. President Marcus Chung received Elena's emergency transmission in the secure communication center beneath the Global Defense Complex. The holographic message showed Elena's face, streaked with tears but still defiant. Behind her, the empty chambers of what had once been humanity's diplomatic headquarters. On the Council homeworld painted a stark picture of their new reality. Marcus had been expecting this call ever since intelligence reports started coming in about secret council sessions and military buildups near human space. He had hoped that Elena's diplomatic skills might buy them more time, but it seemed the die had already been cast. Around the conference table, his most trusted advisors watched the recording with expressions ranging from shock to barely controlled rage. "How long do we have?" asked Admiral Sarah Cross, her uniform crisp despite having been called from her bed in the middle of the night. Her silver hair was pulled back in a severe bun, and her blue eyes held the cold calculation of someone already planning for war. 60 days to evacuate all human settlements from Council space, Marcus replied, his voice steady despite the magnitude of the crisis. But I suspect they'll start enforcing the blockade much sooner than that. We need to assume we have maybe 3 weeks before they begin actively preventing our ships from moving freely. Asterisk. Dr. James Liu shifted uncomfortably in his chair, clearly bearing the weight of responsibility for the situation. His research into ancient alien technologies had been the catalyst for the Council's actions, and everyone in the room knew it. Mr. President, I want you to know that my team stands ready to support whatever response you deem appropriate. Our research may have started this crisis, but it may also hold the key to our survival. General Patricia Hayes, Earth's chief military strategist, spread holographic star charts across the table surface. The tactical situation is not encouraging. Council forces are already moving to establish blockade positions around our major colonies. They have overwhelming numerical superiority and technological advantages that we cannot match in direct confrontation. If they decide to use force, our conventional defenses won't last more than a few hours. Marcus studied the tactical displays with the focused attention that had carried him through 2 decades of political leadership. The numbers were indeed sobering. Humanity's military forces had been designed primarily for planetary defense and anti-piracy operations. They had never prepared for a war against the most powerful alliance in galactic history. But as Marcus looked around the table at the faces of Earth's most capable leaders, he felt a familiar stirring of the determination that had driven his species to reach for the stars in the first place. Humans had overcome impossible odds before. They had survived ice ages and plagues, world wars, and natural disasters. They had built civilizations from nothing and reached beyond their own planet through sheer force of will. Now they would do it again. Asterisk, we're not going to run, Marcus announced, his voice carrying the authority that had made him one of Earth's most effective presidents. We're not going to beg for mercy or hope that they'll change their minds. If the Council wants to cast us out, then we'll show them what humanity can accomplish when we're truly free to pursue our own destiny. Admiral Cross leaned forward, her tactical mind already working through possibilities. What exactly are you proposing, Mr. President? Marcus activated the secure communication system and began sending orders to government facilities across Earth and throughout human space. We're going to evacuate every human from Council territory, but we're not going to retreat to Earth and wait for them to come finish us off. We're going to establish our own nation among the stars, with our own military, our own economy, and our own rules. And when we're strong enough, we're going to show the galaxy what they lost when they decided to exile us. Asterisk. Dr. Liu's eyes widened as he realized the implications of what the president was suggesting. Sir, that would require technological advances that might take decades to achieve. The Council controls all the major hyperspace routes through their bio-neural networks. Without access to their systems, we'd be limited to slower-than-light travel between solar systems. Then we'll have to find another way. Marcus replied with a confidence he didn't entirely feel. You've been studying alien technologies for over a decade. Surely some of that knowledge can be adapted for our use. Liu nodded slowly, his scientific mind already working through theoretical possibilities. There might be something. We've discovered energy patterns in some of the ancient ruins that suggest alternative methods of faster-than-light travel. The technology is far more primitive than what the Council uses, but it might be adaptable to human engineering principles. General Hayes activated additional tactical displays showing the locations of human settlements throughout the galaxy. We have approximately 12 million civilians to evacuate from Council space. Even with every available transport ship working around the clock, we're looking at a massive logistical challenge. And that's assuming the Council gives us the full 60 days they promised. They won't, Admiral Cross said grimly. Intelligence reports indicate that enforcement fleets are already moving into position. I estimate we have maybe 3 weeks before they start actively interfering with our evacuation efforts. Marcus made his decision with the same swift certainty that had characterized every major choice in his political career. Then we make those 3 weeks count. Admiral Cross, I want you to coordinate the evacuation of all non-essential personnel from our frontier colonies. Bring them back to our core systems where we can better protect them. General Hayes, begin mobilizing our reserves and stockpiling strategic materials. We're going to need everything we can get our hands on. What about the colonies themselves? Dr. Liu asked. Some of these settlements have been humanity's home for over a century. The agricultural stations on Kepler 442b feed millions of people. The mining operations on Proxima Centauri produce materials that are essential to our technology base. We'll have to abandon what we can't defend and fight for what we can't afford to lose. Marcus replied, It's going to be the hardest decision any of us have ever made, but we don't have the luxury of keeping everything. We need to focus on survival first and rebuilding second. As the emergency session continued through the night, the scope of humanity's challenge became increasingly clear. They were facing not just exile, but potential extinction. The Council had the power to blockade human space, cut off their trade routes, and slowly strangle their civilization. But as dawn broke over Earth's capital city, Marcus felt a growing certainty that this crisis might also represent humanity's greatest opportunity. For 3 centuries, humans had lived as junior members of the galactic community, following Council rules and accepting Council limitations on their development. Now they would be free to pursue their own path, to develop technologies without oversight, to explore regions of space that the Council had declared off limits, and to forge their own relationships with other species who might be chafing under Council control. The exile might have been intended as a death sentence, but Marcus was determined to turn it into humanity's declaration of independence among the stars. Asterisk. The rise of the human empire 5 years had passed since the Great Exile, and Admiral Sarah Cross stood on the bridge of the flagship Prometheus, watching as the newest additions to humanity's fleet completed their final system checks. The massive vessel stretching out before her bore little resemblance to the exploration ships and cargo haulers that had once represented human space power. These were warships, built from the ground up with technologies that no alien species had ever encountered. The transformation had been remarkable, even by human standards. When the Council had cast them out, humanity had possessed perhaps 50 ships that could generously be called military vessels. Now their fleet numbered in the thousands, with production facilities scattered across a dozen star systems that the Council didn't even know existed. The secret lay in the breakthrough that Dr. James Liu's team had achieved in those desperate months following the exile. Sarah activated her personal communicator and contacted the research station orbiting the fourth planet of the Vega system. Dr. Liu, this is Admiral Cross. How are the final tests proceeding on the Mark 7 drive system? Liu's holographic image appeared on her command display, showing a man who had aged considerably during 5 years of intensive research, but whose eyes still burned with scientific passion. Behind him, the exotic machinery of humanity's most advanced laboratory hummed with barely contained energy. The results exceed our most optimistic projections, Admiral. The quantum tunnel drive can transport our largest battleships across galactic distances in a matter of hours rather than months. We've essentially made the Council's bio-neural networks obsolete. Quantum tunnel drive represented everything the Council had feared about human innovation. Instead of relying on living organisms to navigate hyperspace, human engineers had developed a purely technological solution based on quantum mechanics and spatial geometry. The drives could punch holes directly through the fabric of space-time, creating temporary wormholes that allowed for nearly instantaneous travel between distant points. More importantly, the quantum tunnels were completely undetectable by Council sensors. Their bioships were designed to monitor the organic networks that most species used for faster-than-light communication and travel. They had no way of detecting artificial spatial distortions created by human technology. This meant that human fleets could appear anywhere in the galaxy without warning, a tactical advantage that was already proving decisive in their expanding operations. Captain Luna Rodriguez, representing the new generation of human military leaders, approached Sarah's command station with a tactical report that made the Admiral smile with satisfaction. Luna had been just a junior officer during the exile, but 5 years of constant warfare had forged her into one of humanity's most effective commanders. Her dark hair was streaked with premature gray, and her brown eyes held the hard edge of someone who had seen too much combat. "Admiral, the liberation of the Altarian colonies is complete," Luna reported, her voice carrying the professional satisfaction of a mission well executed. "Their population of 8 million is now under human protection, and their industrial facilities are already beginning production of quantum drive components. More importantly, we've gained access to their database of Council military installations throughout this sector." The Altarian liberation had been humanity's first major military operation against Council forces, and its success had sent shockwaves throughout the galaxy. The Altarians were a peaceful species of blue-skinned humanoids who had been subjected to increasingly harsh taxation and resource extraction by their Council overseers. When human diplomats had offered them protection in exchange for alliance, they had accepted with desperate gratitude. The battle itself had lasted less than 6 hours. Human ships had appeared without warning in the Altarian system, their quantum drives allowing them to bypass Council patrol lines entirely. The occupation fleet, consisting of 3 Council biocruisers and their support vessels, had been completely unprepared for the assault. Human weapons, designed around kinetic energy rather than the plasma systems favored by most species, had punched through bio-armor defenses like they were made of paper. "What's our intelligence assessment of Council response capabilities?" Sarah asked, studying the tactical displays that showed human operations across 17 different star systems. Luna activated additional holographic projections showing Council fleet movements throughout the galaxy. They're in complete disarray. Our attacks have been so sudden and coordinated that they can't predict where we'll strike next. They've started pulling forces back from frontier regions to protect their core systems, which is creating opportunities for other oppressed species to assert their independence. This was perhaps the most significant development of the past year. As news of human victories spread throughout the galaxy, dozens of other species had begun questioning Council authority. Some had declared independence outright, while others had simply stopped paying their tribute taxes or providing forced labor. The rigid hierarchy that had maintained galactic order for millennia was beginning to crumble. Sarah walked to the main observation deck, where she could see the true scope of humanity's achievement. The Prometheus was surrounded by a fleet of over 200 vessels, representing not just human shipyards, but allied construction facilities from 6 different species. The Altarians provided precision manufacturing capabilities. The crystal-based Zenithari offered advanced energy systems. The insectoid Vactar contributed their expertise in automated production systems. Each species brought unique strengths to the Alliance, but they were all united by a common desire for freedom from Council oppression. Under human leadership, they had formed something unprecedented in galactic history, a truly voluntary confederation of independent species working together for mutual benefit rather than survival under a dominant hierarchy. General Alex Kim materialized beside Sarah through the ship's holographic communication system. His image transmitted from the Ground Operations Center on New Geneva, humanity's fastest-growing colony world. Alex had been responsible for developing the ground combat techniques that allowed human forces to capture Council installations intact rather than simply destroying them. His tactical innovations had been crucial in turning human raids into permanent territorial gains. Admiral, we've completed our analysis of the captured Council archives from the Procyon system, Alex reported, his Korean features showing the satisfaction of a soldier who had just gained a significant intelligence advantage. The information confirms what we suspected about their command structure. The Council operates through fear and rigid hierarchy, but their actual military capabilities are more limited than they want anyone to know. Sarah studied the intelligence reports with growing interest. The Council's greatest strength had always been their reputation for invincibility. Most species submitted to their authority without resistance because they believed opposition was futile. But human analysis of captured Council facilities had revealed that their military was spread thin across hundreds of star systems, and their response times were much slower than their propaganda suggested. What's their current force deployment looking like? Sarah asked. Alex activated detailed tactical displays showing Council fleet positions throughout the galaxy. They're having to choose between protecting their tribute-paying systems and defending their core territories. Every ship they send to deal with our operations is one less vessel available for maintaining control over the species that finance their empire. We've created a strategic dilemma they can't solve with their current resources. The genius of the human strategy was becoming clear. Rather than attempting to match the Council's numerical superiority, humanity had focused on speed, surprise, and alliance building. Each successful liberation operation weakened the Council's economic base while strengthening the human coalition. More importantly, each victory demonstrated to other oppressed species that the Council could be defeated. President Marcus Chun, now bearing the title of Chancellor of the Free Systems Alliance, appeared on the command display from his headquarters on Earth. The years of leadership during humanity's most challenging period had added lines to his face, but his eyes still held the determination that had guided their species through the exile crisis. Admiral Cross, General Kim, I have news that will change the strategic balance of this entire conflict, Marcus announced, his voice carrying the weight of a momentous decision. The Catherian Empire has agreed to join our alliance. They're bringing 40 star systems and the largest industrial base in this sector of the galaxy. Sarah felt her breath catch as she processed the implications. The Cytherians were one of the most powerful independent species in the galaxy, with military technology that rivaled even the Council's bioships. Their decision to ally with humanity represented a tipping point that would fundamentally alter the balance of galactic power. What convinced them to join us? Luna asked, her tactical mind already working through the possibilities that Cytherian alliance would create. Fear, Marcus replied simply. Our intelligence operations have revealed that the Council has been planning to subjugate the Cytherian Empire within the next decade. They were going to manufacture a crisis that would justify military intervention, just like they've done with dozens of other independent species over the past few centuries. When we shared this intelligence with the Cytherian leadership, they realized that neutrality was no longer an option. The war that followed would later be called the Liberation Conflict, though historians would debate whether it was more accurately described as a revolution or a conquest. Human fleets, now supported by allied forces from over 30 species, launched coordinated strikes against Council installations throughout the galaxy. The quantum drive technology allowed for battle plans that would have been impossible under the old hyperspace networks. Admiral Sarah Cross found herself commanding the largest military force in human history as the Allied fleets converged on the Council's home system. The battle would determine whether humanity's 5-year campaign of liberation would culminate in victory or catastrophic defeat. The Council had assembled their most powerful vessels for this final confrontation, including bioships that were larger and more heavily armed than anything humans had previously encountered. But as the human fleet emerged from quantum tunnels throughout the system, appearing simultaneously at dozens of strategic points, Sarah realized that the outcome had never really been in doubt. The Council had spent centuries perfecting the art of controlling others through fear and overwhelming force. They had never learned to adapt when faced with an enemy who refused to be intimidated. The Battle of the Council Worlds lasted 18 hours and ended with the complete surrender of the galactic government that had ruled for over 3,000 years. When the bioships finally powered down their weapons and accepted human terms for ceasefire, Sarah understood that her species had achieved something unprecedented in galactic history. They had not merely won their freedom from oppression. They had created a new model for how different species could coexist and prosper together. The Free Systems alliance that emerged from humanity's exile would grow to encompass over 200 species and 1,000 star systems, all united by the principles that had driven human exploration from the very beginning: curiosity, cooperation, and the unwavering belief that intelligent beings deserved to determine their own destiny among the stars. As Chancellor Marcus Chun stood before the representatives of the former Council species, accepting their surrender and offering them membership in the new galactic order, he reflected on the journey that had brought humanity to this moment. They had been cast out as dangerous troublemakers who asked too many questions and refused to accept limitations. Now they were the founders of the greatest alliance in galactic history, and their questions had revealed truths that benefited every species among the stars. Asterisk.